Boxing King Media. We're out here in Riyadh. At 48 hours notice, we've rocked up in Riyadh for one of the biggest fights in boxing history, fair to say. I'm not saying the biggest, but one of the ones right up there, Gareth. Fair to say. They've just pulled you out of, I think you was already in this part of the world somewhere, weren't you?
I was, but first of all, I got to say my massive disappointment that it's 32 days that you just told me since I've been on Boxing King Media with you. Why have you left me out in the cold for so long? I feel like the spy who was left out in the cold. No, I've been over in this part of the world as well. I've been doing Crypto Fight Night boxing event in the Philippines, in Manila. Just had a little holiday there, and I was via Bangkok on the way home, so I had a little stopover there, and like you, got the call up to come over here and do this press conference. It is a really big fight, one I'm really looking forward to, a match-up of the number 3 pound for pound in the world against the number 8, who's Canelo, pound for pound, on the Ring Magazine pound for pound rankings. Really big fight.
It definitely is. Just before we jump into the fights, Lucky man, obviously you've been doing some stuff with Crypto Fight Week, getting to travel to Manila. I'm just curious, how come is there no direct flights from Manila to Riyadh, or was Bangkok a stopover?
No, I was, right, here's my travel itinerary. No, I got flown London to Bangkok, Bangkok to Manila, and that was my return leg. And Bangkok 7 hours from here. And it's 12 hours back to the UK, so I just did the layover, went to a hip club where you picked me up on my Instagram story, where I was with 2 of my Taiwanese mates, airline stewardesses, at a club called Got Bangkok, very hip, very upmarket club in a beautiful area of Bangkok. Lovely to stay over there. I mean, I know we're having a heat wave in the UK at the moment, but Southeast Asia is so beautiful. A great part of the world. And of course, I don't know if you know this, but I lived out in Beijing for a year reporting, and travelled all over Southeast Asia at the time. I love that part of the world. Obviously, Thailand being the home of Muay Thai. It was a kind of opportune to come here on the way back and not have to go home and all the way back again. So filled my boots with a bit of partying in Bangkok on the way over.
It's good to see that you still got it, because I was going to ask about them 2 ladies on your Instagram. I haven't screenshot it.
You've even got it on your little list of things. Good picture though, eh?
It is, yeah. So they're air hostesses.
Cindy and Claudia, yeah.
Which airline did you meet them on?
I didn't meet them on an airline. I met them in the... You are so nosy. You really are.
Having conversation, aren't we?
Really
People love getting to know you like you.
Do you have sex the day before a fight or not? Do you have sex the day before a fight, or do you do the Anthony Joshua, where you abstain for a week before the big fight weeks?
Do you shower on the day of a fight?
I always shower on the day of a fight. Right, let's go.
Good skills. But yeah, I'm just curious.
You did warn me that you were going to pull me up on my Instagram story, but there you go.
Yeah, it's a fair question to ask you if you, where you met these ladies, etc. They seem quite nice.
Yeah, they're beautiful women. They are.
Yeah, indeed, they are.
Cindy and Claudia.
Big shout out to them. It's on the screen if people want to know what we're talking about. But so let's jump into it, Gareth.
Cheeky devil.
We like to have a laugh. In fact, you know what? I even screenshot some questions, not questions, but just some statements, because it's been 32 days and I was reading the last interview we did. Obviously, it was a reaction to the Fisher-Allen fight. The comments, I'd say 95% positive. I don't know what this one means. He said they tried to silence Gareth and discredit him, but he's the one that's won. People want to invite you for a Chinese to their houses. So some of these fans want to invite you around.
Well, a lot of people, weirdly, got in touch with me when Johnny Fisher got knocked out by Dave Allen and wanted me to put the boot in on Big John Fisher. And that's not what I would do. That's not my modus operandi. And I felt for Johnny. I thought Big John handled it very well. Haven't really spoken a lot about this, to be honest. I felt for John, but for Johnny Fisher. It was a brilliant knockout by Dave Allen, a brutal knockout. I'm not going to celebrate someone being brutally knocked out because someone had an issue with me over my comments or my opinion about judging. I was glad to see Johnny recovered afterwards. I thought, as I say, I think Big John handled the scenario very well. They didn't shy away from it. But no, you know, I'm not going to put my boot on someone when they're on their neck, when they're down in that way. You know me well enough. That's not my style. I'm not into Schadenfreude, delighting in someone else's misfortune. Big John's got his opinion. He's ostracised me from their setup, if you like. I'm sure Johnny Fisher will give me interviews in the future as part of his career, but I only wish him well. I only ever did wish him well. All I ever did was give my opinion about a judging scenario. It wasn't personal, but I think they made it personal. It's not something I did. So, you know, no, it's nice to clear that up. I have no beef or grudge with any of them.
It's like I said, it's good to leave that as a positive message on your end, and hopefully you guys can.
Asking though, have you got any other fans?
No real question.
Save that for the next time.
We'll save that for the next time. A lot of them were like kind of statements. Somebody called you a medallion man, creepy, swarmy, egotistical medallion man.
No,
what does a medallion man mean? I don't know. Oh, that's very bad. Okay.
You know, medallion man, playboy. I don't know what that's that kind of thing, but yeah, thank you very much for your kind comments.
Thank you. Let's move on. One of the biggest fights ever. You know, one of the first things whenever there's a big Saudi backed show that gets announced, because we normally hear in the build up to, oh, it's not going to happen anymore, this is short term, and bang, out comes another big event. You know, just in a very short statement, where do you think boxing would be right now if the main man, Turkey, didn't get involved at all? If you look at what he's done in the last 24 months, where do you think we'd be right now? What would be going on with Frank, Eddie, Ben Shalom, etc.?
Well, there's an enormous legacy in the heavyweight division right now, and we're seeing it, and people are debating the top 10 and the top 20 in the division. Excuse me. Even outside hardcore boxing fans, the mainstream know who pretty much the top 10 are in the heavyweight division. Turki Al Sheikh and the Saudi Arabians can take credit for doing a brilliant job to round off this era of heavyweight boxing. They put a statement, an exclamation mark on the end of this era. There's no question about that. Look what they've done in 2 years in the sport. Look what Turki Al Sheikh's done, tirelessly working with his team, with Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, and others. Bob Arum, all around this entire heavyweight spectrum, and you can include Deontay Wilder in that, I suppose, from the American side. I think that is their big legacy, and obviously they've moved on to the lighter divisions now, and this liaison with TKO, the creation of TKO, and the liaison with Dana White, who's obviously a brilliant promoter as well, with his own league, the UFC. So without the Saudi Arabians, if you recall, we were 3 years ago saying, where's Joshua Wilder? We still haven't had that fight. I still hope we do get it. I think it's plausible if Wilder wins next week. I still think we could get Joshua Wilder. I think it's a perfect fight for Joshua to come back and do if Wilder can get a bit of resonance in his fight with Herndon. We wouldn't have got with ease, and I know the amount of work Spencer Brown put into this to get Usyk Fury over the line. We wouldn't have had the 2 undisputed fights last year, which were enormous for the sport. First event of that nature for 25 years. So, you know, if you add that with the Times Square event, obviously, which backfired a little bit, it didn't work in every capacity. It was a great idea, but the fights didn't deliver in droves for one reason and another. But the effort was there, the vision was there, and I think the vision's there with this one. I think, have they announced the Allegiant Stadium or not? Yeah, I mean, it's going to be enormous. I don't think it's the biggest fight this century. I don't agree with the top line. I think the biggest fight this century was Mayweather-Pacquiao. Certainly $600 million US that generated. the biggest crossover fight was Mayweather and McGregor, and the biggest eyeballs on a fight was Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, and they're all very different fights. But of the purest fights, and even though it came late, was Mayweather and Pacquiao, because it's probably about 3 or 4 years too late. But if I was going to make a comparison with huge fights, for me this is a Hagler Sugar Ray Leonard type fight, Marvelous Marvin Hagler Sugar Ray Leonard type of fight, where you've got a guy coming up a couple of weight divisions, a brilliant fighter, arguably the standout guy of the era, certainly of the last 7-8 years, probably underplayed a little bit, could have had more fights, has undersold himself a little bit. He's not given to profligate shows of trash talk or entertainment outside the ring, lets his hands do his talking and feet. And he's got a massive opportunity against Saul Canelo Alvarez. All the jeopardy's on Canelo for me, because Crawford can prove that he's an all-time great. If he can beat Canelo, I think he becomes an all-time great. And I think that's what's at stake here. And I think Crawford's going to be a puzzle for Canelo as well. Crawford may not have been hit as hard ever by anyone as he gets hit by Canelo in that ring. But I want to see a little bit of attrition between them. I saw them at dinner at Turkey's house and His Excellency's house, and I see he always does that because he's that kind of host, isn't he? I've had the privilege of going to his farm myself, and he's that kind of host. That's the way he entertains. He's very diplomatic in that way. So I get it why they're there, but I do want to see a bit of attrition from them today and in this 3-city tour.
Well, I know you're picking Crawford. That's what you've been saying in the last 24 hours.
Yeah,
but just briefly tell me the argument that Crawford went up a division, had a really hard fight against Madrimov, and this is a public debate out there. Madrimov, and it was a close fight. Some people reckon Madrimov might have nicked it, and then also you've got the argument that Virgil Ortiz obviously beat Madrimov quite dominantly. So how does he go up another weight division to fight one of the best fighters of this era? I know.
Well, styles make fights, and Crawford is. He's so comfortable in the office. He's another Shakur Stevenson type fighter where he knows how to do enough to win a fight, and that's what he did against Madrimov. Madrimov didn't overstretch him. He still had the wherewithal, the capabilities. He makes you fight at his pace. Virgil Ortiz is more of a pressure fighter than Terence as well, a more rapacious type of character when he's in the ring. Terence is very controlled. Bud's very controlled when he fights, and he just knows the staging and the pacing of a fight. And it reminds me of Mayweather in some ways, that if you had a close round when Mayweather was fighting, you felt that his movement, his ring generalship, the punches he landed, the cleanliness of his work, the purity of what he was doing. If it was a close round, you very often edged it to Mayweather, and I feel Crawford's similar in that way. Canelo has slowed in his style. He plants his feet more, he loads up more, he doesn't throw punches and bunches in the same way anymore. He may do against Crawford, because he may look to hurt Crawford with combinations. But I think Crawford will have the advantage in terms of straight speed and hand speed as well, and may get his shots off and move a bit quicker. Timing will be everything in this fight. You like that reasoning?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
That's where I'm coming from anyway.
I get what you're saying, but let's see. Like I said, there's arguments both ways.
Who are you picking to win it?
I think it'll be a split decision either way.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think it'll be a very close fight.
Yeah,
I do agree it's going to be close.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably see a rematch potentially.
Maybe.
But I think it's going to be a good fight. I don't think it'll be a dead fight.
It'll be a
good fight.
match. It'll be a chess match.
So, let's see what happens. A couple of other subjects I want to chat to you about. The main one is the Richardson Hitchens thing. He post-fight, unbelievable performance. He comes out and says, I'm a free agent. And I spoke to Dom Ingle about this as well. And I don't know if you know any truth in this, but I was querying why Eddie Hearn was doing 3-fight deals with some of the Americans that he's worked with in recent times, like Haney, Hitchens, Berlanga, Canelo, Shakur Stevenson. Like all of them have either left or tried to leave straight after, not really shown any loyalty, whilst Eddie's obviously put his neck out and in his own words, lost money on some of them. Is it a thing where in American contracts you can only have 3-fight deals? And if that isn't the case, can we blame the fighters? Because the other argument is if the fighters lost all 3 of them or lost a couple of them, they're not really valuable assets, and the promoter would have binned them anyway. So what's the argument here?
Well, I think you have to look at the statement of Eddie Hearn losing money. I don't agree with that. First of all, he's on a $1 billion deal over 8 years, 125 million a year if you believe the $1 billion deal. If you do the math, 125 million US dollars a year ain't losing money on Richardson Hitchens. He's making money on them, but he will have invested, yes. And I think maybe he hasn't got the return on his investment with Richardson. It's his prerogative to move on. I mean, he's got to look at his own interests. And I think, again, I'll
stop because I forgot to mention the key part of it, because obviously we saw both
I don't
arguments.
think there's any legalese in 3-fight deals with American fighters. I think, no.
On top of that, obviously we saw, Eddie said that loyalty was questioned and he had dogs around him, and then obviously Hitchens hasn't really said a lot. He did apologise for saying what he said, but then 24 hours later we saw a statement from His Excellency who came out and said he'd only put Hitchens on shows if it's through Eddie. So what do you think's happened there, and is any of that right or wrong?
Well, it's politics in politricks, as Lennox Lewis used to put it. So some of these guys will be looking at the fact that Turki Al Sheikh's moving into America with TKO and Dana White, and it's to their advantage to be free agents, and that will come from their managerial level. I get that. That makes sense. But at the same time, it's nice to see Turki Al Sheikh backing Eddie Hearn in that instance and saying, I know I'll still work with Eddie, or I'll still work with Frank, still work with Spencer Brown, and I'm sure he will, because they're going to need some of those fighters. So, the funny thing is, talking about loyalty and dogs, as Mickey Duff said, if you want loyalty, get a dog. He famously used to say that, but it's just one of those scenarios in boxing. It's a very, very
who's right or wrong in that situation?
I think the fighter's always right.
Interesting.
They're the ones putting themselves on the line. They're the ones getting punched. Without our fighters, we are nothing in this sport.
Okay. The thing with Carl Froch, I know everyone's going to ask you about it, but I've just got one specific point to ask you about this. Carl said in his video...
Yes, he's a troll.
Yeah, he definitely, we all know that, but what the point I want to ask you is...
Yeah, but he doesn't agree that he's a troll, but he is.
He knows what he's doing and he's mastered it.
So he's knobhead of the blooming... I didn't know this. I was told about this last night. It passed me by. I was in his top 8 knobheads in boxing. Thanks, Carl.
Definitely an achievement. Carl said that when he talks about Anthony Joshua, he's talking from a sincere point, and Eddie Hearn is talking from a business point of view. The question I've got for you is that true? And also, could the whole Rob McCracken relationship breakdown with AJ and Rob McCracken be a factor in all of this as well?
Yeah, it could be some loyalty to Rob. They were very, very close, he and Carl. I loved Rob McCracken anyway. He's a great guy. He was great for Carl through his amateur and professional days. It was great to be around them on that journey. Carl, there's always a slither of truth in what Carl's saying. There's always a line that he takes that is believable. He's not without foundation, his views, but he is trolling. He's trolling Anthony Joshua. There's no question about it. Because if Carl was in the same situation, Carl will be doing the same thing as Anthony Joshua and thinking, you know what? Commercially, I can still have 3 more fights. And commercially, Anthony Joshua's probably, if he wins 2 out of the 3, or he wins his next 2, he could still earn another 100 million, 120 million. So it's worth him staying in the sport. He's still only 35. He's still got ambition in the sport. So go for it, I think. So I think Carl's wrong.
Could this be another factor? One of your biggest fans, Porky, he made a one of your fans, Porky, who's got a YouTube channel. He said on his channel that Carl was allegedly promised some sort of cut from introducing Anthony Joshua to Eddie Hearn, and obviously that's potentially, I don't think that's come through. Could that be a factor? Could you reckon any truth in Carl Froch introducing AJ to Eddie?
There could be a resentment, but no one seems free or excusable from Carl's criticism. He's happy to criticise everyone. No one escapes the Froch fighting talk. Froch on fighting is a very aggressive, powerful platform that he's created. It's his soapbox. It's his I'm standing at Hyde Park Corner pontificating. He doesn't step outside boxing. He knows boxing inside out. He has a right to. He's one of the greats of British boxing. He's a Hall of Famer. He fought in front of 80,000 people at Wembley, didn't he? He knocked George Groves out with a cannonball right hand. Carl's got the right to criticise whoever he wants. And if Eddie owes him something, we'll find out about it, you know. But I think Eddie Hearn discovered Anthony Joshua on his own. I don't think Carl Froch. I don't believe that because Anthony Joshua was going around. He was an Olympic super heavyweight champion, so he could have had the pick of who he wanted. So he didn't need Carl Froch to introduce him to Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn knew who he was already.
That's it, really, Gareth. Thank you for your time. And are you going straight back home, or are you going to go via Bangkok again?
Fuck off. I'm going home, baby. Time to get home. You can hear how tired I am in my voice. Looking forward to today, though. Looking forward to seeing Crawford and Canelo a little later. Watch out for all the interviews with the man.
Are you going to ask
the Boxing King media man.
Are you going to ask Crawford or Canelo if they shower on the day of a fight? Because I think that's a brilliant question for either of them.
Yeah, I will ask both of them. Do they shower on the day of a fight? Do you shower on the day of a fight?
Yeah.
How many times do you shower on the day of a fight?
Twice.
There you go. There you go. Exclusive.
Gareth A. Davies, thank you for your time.